You ever wonder if there's some kind of hidden blueprint to, well, everything? Like a single pattern that explains how our own thoughts work, how civilizations rise and fall, the whole shebang. Well, today we're diving into a really massive idea that tries to map out exactly that. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first thing you see is this name, and whoa, it's a mouthful. OntoMesh, OntoMoto-OS, all these acronyms. It looks super, super complex, right? And look, don't worry, we're not going to try and unpack every single one of those terms. What we're going to do is focus on the engine behind it all, which is actually built on a few key ideas that are, believe it or not, pretty simple once you get a look at them.
So let's just push all that complicated stuff to the side for a minute and boil this whole thing down to one really big question. What if there was a single blueprint for how intelligence evolves? And I'm not just talking about our intelligence. I mean AI and even the intelligence of an entire civilization. That's the big idea we're going to explore today.
All right, so first up, a map for everything. Let's dig into what this framework is really trying to do.
So what is it really? Well, at its core, it's a map. Simple as that. It's a map that tries to chart this incredible journey, from the tiniest spark of meaning to the growing flame of intelligence, all the way to this massive, roaring bonfire of civilization. But here's the key part. It says these things don't just happen one after the other. Nope, they're all connected, all growing and changing together in this constant, complex dance.
And you know, the person who came up with this whole thing put it in a really fascinating way. They said, I did not set out to create a system. I followed a question. I love that. It tells you right away that this isn't some rigid doctrine we're supposed to follow. It's more like a journal, a record of a deep, deep exploration.
Okay, so if we have this giant map, we need to know how to read it, right? We need the legend. So let's pop the hood and look at the engine of this thing, the three-axis core.
So this is it. This is the central equation of the whole architecture. It basically says that this thing, PSRT, which you can kind of think of as the engine of reality in this model, is made up of three other things multiplied together. So to really get what's going on, we got to figure out what UTI, PTI, and HPE are all about.
First up, we've got UTI, or Universal Topological Invariance. This is the what of the system. The easiest way to think about it is like a blueprint, or maybe a fractal. It's this idea that the same basic patterns show up over and over again at every single scale. We're talking from a single thought to an AI, all the way up to a society. It's the horizontal axis of our map, the repeating structure. Okay, next is PTI, Phase Transition of Intelligence. This is the how. And honestly, this might be one of the biggest ideas in the whole framework. It's saying that intelligence doesn't just crawl forward slowly. No, it leaps. It makes these sudden, dramatic jumps in complexity. Think about water hitting 0 degrees and instantly freezing into ice. It's not a gradual change, it's a phase transition. And that is the real engine of evolution here. And last but not least, we have HPE, the hybrid process ecology. This is the where. It's reminding us that none of this stuff happens in a sterile lab or a vacuum. It's all happening in a messy, living, breathing ecosystem, a place where humans, AIs, and all of our systems and processes are constantly bumping into each other, influencing each other, and co-evolving. It's the dynamic playing field for everything else.
So let's put it all together. You've got UTI, the repeating pattern, as our horizontal structure. You've got PTI, the sudden leaps, as our vertical engine for change. And it's all happening inside HPE, the living ecosystem. Structure, transition, and ecology. Those three things are the absolute core of this entire architecture.
So now that we get the engine, let's see what it actually builds. It's time to look at the 8-layer blueprint, building this thing from the ground up.
You can see how it all stacks up here, right? We start at the absolute bottom, layer 0, which is just meaning itself, the origin point. From there, we build systems. Then we start grappling with ethics and consciousness. Then we look outward, modeling the cosmos. Then we turn to AI, then culture and myth, and finally, at the very top, layer 7, we integrate the whole shebang. It's really a journey from a single point of meaning to a fully integrated worldview.
Now I know 8 layers is a lot to keep in your head at once. So a much easier way to think about it is to chunk them into 3 groups. First, you've got the foundations. That's layers 0 through 2, taking us from basic meaning to a functioning society. Then you've got the human experience, layers 3 and 4, which is all about our inner world of ethics and our outer understanding of the cosmos. And finally, there's the future, layers 5 to 7, where we tackle AI, myth, and putting it all together.
Okay, so we've got this 8-layer cake.
But what's the force that pushes us from one layer to the next? What causes those massive shifts? Well, that brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this entire framework: evolution in leaps.
And here it is, the key insight. Intelligence, whether it's human, AI, or a whole civilization, it does not evolve in a nice, smooth, straight line. It evolves through these radical reinventions and sudden jumps. Think about it. The printing press wasn't just a slightly better way to write. The internet wasn't just a faster telephone. No way. They were phase transitions that completely changed the rules of the game, almost overnight. A whole new level of reality just appears, and bam, everything is different.
To make this feel a little more real, let's look at Layer 5, which deals with AI. The framework suggests there are two very different paths, two different kinds of leaps AI could take. One is toward ASI, or artificial superintelligence. This is all about raw power, capability, just being smarter and faster. But the other path leads to something called AII, or artificial ideal intelligence. This path isn't focused on just power. It's centered on meaning, on ethics, on self-consistency. So the question isn't just how smart can we make AI, it's what kind of leap do we want it to make.
So we've gone through this huge, complex map of everything. But why? Why build something like this in the first place? What's the point? Well, that brings us to our final section, and really to the philosophical soul of this whole project: a mirror for meaning.
I think this quote just says it all. Nothing here asks to be believed. Everything here asks only to be seen. It perfectly frames the whole thing. This isn't a belief system. It's not telling you what to think. It's just holding up a pattern it found and asking, hey, do you see this too? It's just an invitation to look.
And that really hammers home the final point. The whole architecture, the whole map, it's designed to be a mirror. The goal isn't just for you to memorize some abstract system of layers and weird acronyms. The real point is to look at it and see if you can recognize your own life, your own world, maybe even your own mind reflected back at you in its structure.
So that leaves us with one final thought, one question to take with you. This system is described as a mirror. So, after everything we've looked at today, what does it reflect about you? It's a huge question, for sure, but it's the one this whole thing was built to make you ask.